subjects which are all quite different, and I think all of those are quite valuable for different things, depending on what kind of field you go into. Is that what you wanted to cover?
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. Yeah.
I'm Bella. The same as Fatima, really. I really enjoyed how broad the course content is. It covers everything that you need to know, whether you're going into medicine or you're doing some alternative course. I think one of the main issues that I'd have with this course is we don't use the facilities that we have here. So there's a clinical skills lab downstairs that I wasn't aware that we had. The teaching is very PowerPoint based, especially for body systems, so we don't use anatomy models. We use one anatomy model, we use the digestive system one. I don't know about other people, but for me it's very difficult to learn such a broad topic by seeing it on a PowerPoint. I need to be looking at something that's real, that's there, that I can touch, if you like. Yeah, that's it.
Cool, thank you.
My name is Diana,
So,
and I agree with the girls that the course covers quite a lot. And regarding the body system, I want to mention too that we need something more that you can touch and you can feel. It's not on PowerPoint. Yeah, we can go home and watch videos.
Yeah.
But sometimes video doesn't provide the same thing that you can find behind the organs, because not all organs are in 2D. You need to look and see. Yeah. The rest of the things we will go through, more specific, but it's all right. The course, it's just a foundation that gives you possibility, to go to UCLan, to study. And one of the things is that probably, I think a lot of people, they may told you that if it would be, the course, if it would be accepted by other universities, a kind of, like she needs to get 71, so it's quite high.
Yeah.
So this is a thing, but I don't think that, every university does this. They do their foundation and they want to keep the students, so it's understandable that university does this. So, but I don't know if it can be changed.
Yeah.
You never know.
Okay, most of you know who I am, Val Smart. I'm the course coordinator for the foundation programme across 3 different campuses. I'm based in West Lakes, which is in West Cumbria, and I came on as the course coordinator in September of last year. So just as you guys were starting, I was starting. Although I have worked for UCLan and the School of Medicine before that in a slightly different role.
Okay.
It was based at West Lakes.
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
thank you. So, if you were to describe the course to kind of a friend or a family member, how would you describe it?
I would say be ready for body system. Because the content is, we know that we've got the learning outcomes, but they need to be trimmed down because it's too much. We've got a book, Wiley Plus, on that, and we look, when I revise, I've got the Wiley Plus online book and the PowerPoints, and it's quite difficult, to trim down, because when you look at, you need to know everything what is in Wiley Plus, it's quite a lot. So if the learning outcomes would be trimmed down, so you can say, maths you can do it. Maths it's all right, statistics on that one. It's quite a bit of writing and thinking when you look at the case study, and you need to put your brain, to work. So it's all right, this one. And the body system is quite, you need to, get ready to get quite a lot of chunk, that in for that. But it's useful, but I think they need a bit to trim down. So.
Okay.
I think I would stress that a lot of it is independent study. I think that it comes with most university courses, and stress that to other people are looking back for their foundation course.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't take into independent studies a lot, but I'm used to work independently, so probably that's why I'm not. Yeah. But yeah, it's quite a lot.
I'd probably say that you really do need a scientific background to do this course. There's a gentleman in our class who's a law student. He's an ex-law student. He's never done biology or chemistry before, and he's come into this class thinking it is a really good basis for moving on to other scientific degrees, but you have to have some prior knowledge, otherwise it's very challenging. I think there's two very different groups of people who do this course. There's people who've maybe done A-level biology, chemistry, maths, just missed the grade slightly for medicine. And then there's people who thought, oh, it's a foundation, it's easy, I'm just going to jump in and do this, and it needs to be more specifically advertised. I think that the fact that it's advertised as a pre-med course as well needs to be looked at, because there's 15? I wrote this down, 15 places. And there's about 120 of us between Burnley and West Lakes, and I don't know if this is true for the other classes, but I think especially for our class, I'd say 90% of the people in that class were, if not expecting to progress on to medicine, it was something that was very much in the forefront of their mind. And there's not that opportunity, particularly at the start of the year, to explore other options. We had a pharmacy taster day in February, it's too late to apply for pharmacy. And I think just maybe when the course is being advertised, it's worth saying, okay, this is a route to medicine, but it's not easy. It's not a guaranteed thing.
Because of the amount of spaces.
Because there's
places
15 spaces. Like you said, there's people who might go on to different universities to study medicine from this foundation course, but it's not common. It's not something that is guaranteed, if you like. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're not going to sort of counter-argue anything that you say. We're taking on board everything that you say. And then, okay, so there may be counter-arguments, but we're not going to give them today.
Yeah,
okay.
That's not the point
so
of
it's
this.
not falling on deaf ears, but
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the purpose of today is to hear from you, and then we'll go away and do some
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And then try and take some action. Okay, so if I can maybe start moving us on to some specific topic areas now. So, so what are your experiences of teaching in the course? And not you teaching, but your teachers and the teaching that you receive on the course.
Well, I'm pleased with. For me, it's all right that the teacher comes in, has the PowerPoint, I'm going home, I'm printing them out and making notes, or I'm printing them before, making them notes on. It's quite good, and the PowerPoint is available sometimes 1 week before. So it's the teachers, they do take into account. You ask the questions, they answer the questions. If not, they will come later and this one you can ask the questions during the tutorial, which is perfect, and all they've got activities or questions in this multiple question type, so that you can train on this one. It's all right. I don't see any any negative regarding teaching. I'm pleased with.
Awesome.
I think it's different across the modules. Like, for example, with maths, it's very engaging in terms of they constantly have exercises on what you've just learned, and it's quite engaging in that sort, because you're doing activities in the classrooms. But for example, with like body systems, it's quite passive in terms of it's like the lecturers are talking at you, and obviously there's like a lot to cover in such a short amount of time. But at the same amount of time, 2 hours is 2 hours. A lot of people lose focus and their attention. So because it's quite, it's not as engaging as, for example, maths with questions and activities, but it's quite hard to incorporate that in body systems at the same time.
I was going to say the same kind of thing for maths and body systems. Just with scientific communication and case study based learning, I think the assessment guidance was very vague. Again, I've never done a foundation degree before. I don't know if that's quite standard for the whole procedure, but especially for scientific communication, for a lot of people, it's the first piece of scientific writing they'll have done, and the feedback we received for that was again quite limited. We didn't have an opportunity to do, formative, is it formative when it's like a mock? We didn't have an opportunity to do a formative for scientific communication, which again, because it was the first piece of assessed writing we'd done, seemed a bit strange. With case study based learning, it's group based discussion, which is great. I think it's fantastic. But there needs to be more emphasis on people doing reading before the class, because it was very much we'd get to class, right, okay, this is your topic, go away for an hour and research it, and you can't do a quality amount of research for a broad topic in an hour.
And did you find some students did that and some students didn't?
Yeah, they did. So there was a couple of occasions where one student in a group would have done the research, the rest of them hadn't. They'd just be using that research, which again will happen everywhere, of course. But there needs to be more emphasis, especially for case study, on independent learning, on this is your course, take ownership for it. And I think that could be a very valuable module, but at the moment it just seems to be a Mickey Mouse module that's been tacked on the end that isn't really given much weight, despite the fact that the assessment's worth quite a lot.
It's a double module.
Yeah.
So do you think by doing the group work like that and some people not pulling their weight within the group that causes resentment within a group?
I think it does. Again, the class is very split. It's split between people who've just finished college, who are very much still in the mindset of I'm 18, I'm going to go out partying every night, and don't really pay attention, and people who are maybe, if not a bit older, have got the mindset to focus themselves on it. Yeah, I don't know if people maybe need more guidance with how to work in a group, or...
Okay, and so do you pick your own groups?
Usually. I think maybe we should be put into groups, or have one group for a semester for case study based learning, and then you can get to know them. Again, this might be completely irrelevant. I have a friend who's studying law and they do the similar thing, case study based learning, but they're put in a group of 10 for the entire year, and they build up a really good relationship with those people.
Yeah. So that could, you think that would work if it started like right at the outset, say, welcome week or whatever, first couple of weeks, we put you into these artificial groups, so it's a buddy group, if you like, that you can support each other, that will then come to fruition, if you like, when you do the case-based studies, because that's when
absolutely.
That's a really good idea.
I think it'll help people mix a bit better as well, because again, there seems to be a group of probably 10 students who'd all come from the same school, and they would only speak to themselves, and it would just help people merge a bit.
Yeah, I think with the issue with the groups of case study is that after everyone's got on their offers, everyone's like, who haven't got what they wanted, for example medicine, they've lost the motivation, so they've not been very active or engaging with the module, so it's difficult to do group work when everyone's not really into it anymore. So for example, if they've got other courses and they're just completing the year, just going through it.
Yeah. So that's like, somebody has to get 70% or 75%, somebody has to get 40%, then perhaps
some people are doing something completely different.
But you would never know that at the outset in September when you put people in groups.
Yeah, a lot of people have dropped out at the same time as well, in the middle of the year, so groups, it wouldn't really work in terms of...
But it would be a start.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah. And do you think that kind of dropping out, is that affecting, say if that happens in the groups you've been in, does that have an impact on how the group works and your feelings towards your assessments and things?
I guess kind of, like you make friends and then your friends leaves and you're a little bit a bit upset, and also even for the lecturers, when they see the turnout of who's come to the lecture and they see, this used to be a full class of say 30 or something, and that's dropped down to 8 or 6, and it kind of affects their performance at the same time.
Yeah.
Not negatively, but you can tell.
No, I get that, and there was a lot of discussion around when was the best time to do interviews and give offers out, and obviously we are under the auspices of UCAS, so there's certain rules that we have to, offers have to be out by a certain stage, so that, to give people time to accept, etc. And so that isn't something that we could necessarily sort of move, but it's still interesting to see, when people don't get what they want, and I understand the disappointment in that. But trying to get over that message where it's still worthwhile completing the programme.
I think that's quite a big thing. You need to give the foundation course value in itself, not just value of where you can go on from it. Again, that's a bit of
Well, it's because it's not a
something.
foundation degree itself, so it doesn't come with its own awarding certificate,
Yeah.
and that's the same for all the foundation programmes within the university itself.
Yeah.
So this is a Foundation to Medical Sciences programme,
Yeah.
so there's that automatic progression onto medical sciences,
Okay.
but there is the option to apply for all these other programmes as well.
Okay.
But that's not necessarily, that is there, it's out there, that's the way it's advertised, but that's not necessarily the way people would read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sounds like it's caused some confusion, doesn't it? Around kind of what you feel the course is sold as. So I'm just going to draw that one to a close, and thank you for all of those. We mentioned at the beginning, we started talking a little bit about the things that you learn. So I'd like to move us on around your thoughts about the content of the course and kind of both broadly, and then, you know, if we want to talk about, the opportunity to talk about specifics. I know like body systems has come up a few times, so that could be a good place to start or not. But so what do we think kind of about the content?
I don't
Any
know,
thoughts on
module by
content?
module, that'd be a good way to do
Whichever,
it.
well, however you want to, you know, whatever your thoughts are, we'll try and get them out. Yeah.
Which module are we starting with?
Start with one, start with biochem systems.
Yeah, I think for, especially for students who haven't come from a scientific background in terms of A-levels, I think that was very good in terms of, because that was quite basic. But at the same time, for people who just come out of college and done A-levels, it seemed kind of repetitive. But I think it's quite difficult to make it inclusive for all different types of people who might be entering the course.
Yeah. I agree with Fatima on that. I don't really have anything else to add about that.
So have you, I hope you don't mind me asking, but have you come from have you done like a science kind of before you got here? So you felt that
Yeah,
kind
I
of,
did A-level science.
Yeah, okay. So you kind of, that was then getting the people who hadn't up to speed essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do A-levels because I'm coming from another country, but I did the GCSEs, and after I did the Access course at Manchester College, so it gives a kind of, they're saying it's similar to A-levels, but it's not A-levels, but I've got this background, so for me the content is not so difficult. I've got friends that they found it difficult.
Okay.
Because, and Temba said that in order to get into this course you need to have a background, not a background, but at least to do something similar to A-levels, because it's not impossible to complete the course, but it will be difficult and you have to put extra into. I didn't find it difficult. It's like the amount in the body system, the second semester that I found it. But in body system, the first one, it was all right. We had a book, and you know, it was all right. I didn't find it any.
I think with the biochem systems, it is a gap bridger between sort of A-levels and actually going to study a sort of clinical stroke medical related course. So that's why there's that emphasis on the statistical packages and sorry, that's maths. The elements of chemistry that were applicable to medicine, so your acid bases, buffers, that sort of type of thing, rather than let's study organic chemistry that's, you know, irrelevant to the future programmes. So they were all chosen around that. But I can understand if you've already studied A-level chemistry or A-level biology, there is an element of repetition.
Yeah. I think with biological and chemical systems, it would have been quite nice to have some practical elements again, especially with the chemistry. I don't know if that's possible within this environment. But I was speaking to a couple of people who've done a similar course to this, who've moved on to biomedical science, and they said they'd had quite a lot of practical-based chemistry learning.
So like laboratories. Stuff,
yeah, which again I realise is limited in this sort of space. It's not a scientific space, but I do think people miss out there. Especially, like you said, if you've not really come from a scientific background, and as soon as you're moving on to if not a medical degree, a scientific degree, it will be quite practically based.
How would you feel about virtual lab scenario?
I don't understand what a virtual lab would look like. What would that be?
Well, it would be an online, possibly a 3D type.
I mean, it would be an improvement.
Yeah.
It's not the same as having these instruments. In
Yeah,
front
yeah,
of
no,
you,
I
knowing
understand that,
knowing
yeah.
how to handle them, but it would be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that I think that's quite valuable feedback, especially kind of in terms of this course as kind of a progression into a number of other options. Then I can see how kind of something like that would be quite useful. Wouldn't it? Yeah.
I don't know if we have that kind of facilities down the road at Burnley College. I know there's a lot of clinical skills labs down there. I'm not sure about laboratories, but might be worth looking at. Maybe.
I mean, the chemistry element of the programme has been made more robust this year than it was previous, because it was a bit of a hole really in terms of the material, I think, and progressing on to other programmes. So, you know, with Andreas's input as a chemist, but we've never had that even when the programme ran the first year at Westlakes. But yeah, take point.
Excellent.
So what else? So there's body science, what about maths?
Statistics.
Yeah, I know. I like how the topics are included, and I like how there are lots of questions that you can practice. Like during tutorials and things, there's like lots of worksheets straight after. Also with the answers after they've covered the class for you to practice straight away, and it's all quite accessible on Blackboard. I think I like that.
Yeah, I enjoyed the statistics module. You can see how it links into the course, so when you're writing assignments and that sort of thing, you are aware that this statistics module, you're not just doing it for the sake of it, it is valuable in that respect, which was really nice. It's not something I've come across with maths before. Like Fatima said, there's always questions at the end. You can always reinforce your learning. There's Andreas is fantastic. He's very good. He's always there if you need a hand with a specific bit of material.
Yeah, the content I'm happy in statistics because you've got what you need on PowerPoints. You don't need to go if you don't understand the concept, so you can go and read around. But he is just there. What you need, learn it, and you've got questions. So this is good.
And just coming back to this, there's a couple of bits. So when you say accessible on Blackboard, so is there a difference between the content of what's being put on Blackboard for your maths and statistics compared to some of the other modules on the course?
As in, there are questions that you can do to, exactly as you said.
Yeah, okay, so they're put up onto Blackboard for you to kind of do.
Separate to the lectures.
Yeah.
So extra resources help a lot.
Yeah. And we're saying it's very clear on this one how that links into your wider course. Is that different than other modules? Is that done in a different way how that links? Is that kind of set out, or it's just clear as you're doing it how you're applying that elsewhere?
I think it's just clear as you're moving forward in the course. So for example, for scientific communication, we were writing a piece of work, a literature review, and as part of literature reviews and scientific writing, obviously there's a lot of statistics involved in that, and it was helpful having that module during that time so you could understand the statistics that you were looking at. Otherwise it's a lot of numbers and not a lot of sense. Yeah, I can't think of anything else constructive.
He gives real examples here. Specific examples. Look, this one happens if blood pressure goes up and down. So he has specific examples that helps us a lot to understand how the things work.
The second half of the module, the calculus element of it.
Calculus. No, it's the same. I mean, he's got straightforward questions. Theory, he goes through theory. Afterwards, questions. He incorporates questions regarding to theory. So he's got everything what you need to know there. If you don't understand, you go and read. But I don't have anything negative about Andreas to say. He's really good at, did you understand? Not. If not, he will explain, and it's.
We'll allow him to have some leftovers then. As a good shout. Okay.
Well, maybe the lettuce.
Yeah. Right, thank you for that. What do we want to do next?
What is it? We went to
Body system.
Yeah,
Body
that's the big
system,
elephant, isn't it?
yeah.
So far, body systems. Let's do body systems.
So, hasn't been a time when models have been brought up to the classroom or anything like that, or you've used the anatomage table?
No.
There wasn't there
One occasion.
Yeah, it might be because we're different classes, but there's one occasion where they had the body. Was it digestive
It was the
system?
digestive one, and we were pointing at the spleen, and it was very exciting because we saw a model in front of us. But I work the open days at Burnley, and I was asked to show people where the clinical skills lab and the anatomage table, and I thought I wasn't aware we had a clinical skills lab
Well, it is fairly
or a
recent.
table. Like, it just seemed a bit odd.
The clinical skills lab is a recent addition.
Okay.
It wasn't here when
Yeah,
we first
it started
started.
in
Okay.
Feb, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We hadn't been hiding it from you, I promise you.
But even then, if it's been here since February, we've been doing body systems like throughout February, March. It would have been nice just to, if not, just have a look around and say maybe this is what
We
you
had a look around with Temba because we were there in the canteen, and he went in to take something. He asked us if we want to have a look.
Yeah.
So I believe we were 6 of us that went around and we had a look at it. But he didn't mention that we can use it.
Yeah.
So
And
we
can
need
you
to
see
be
how
able to-
that would be applicable? So you've seen the clinical skills space, and you see how that would be applicable in body systems.
Yes, a lot.
I would like you'd see how that might support some of your learning.
So, for example, in the lab there is like anatomy models to be used. There's the dolls. Maybe we could do some sort of anatomy workshop with them. I think just something hands-on.
Yeah,
Maybe in small groups, maybe not in small groups.
What if we sort of, in terms of timetabling, that we did like an additional, so you've got your timetable as is, and then we said, right, okay, for those that wanted an additional look at the models and whatever, we timetable that as a separate kind of one-off thing
That
towards the end of body systems, or one afternoon a week, or
Yeah.
what, or
I think that could work. With the body systems tutorials, these are put down as optional, so maybe you could do it during that time, because I don't attend the body systems tutorials because they're optional. As far as I'm aware, there's not a lot that happens during them. I might be wrong because I don't go to them.
Well, I do attend them, and we usually go through the questions that may come up in the exam. And we discuss, he puts the question up and the 4 answers, so we have to discuss why we chose that answer. And sometimes, sometimes I may be wrong.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, if you don't know, go and find out now and explain. It takes a bit of time, but it helps you to understand why you have to answer that. It's a bit, it's a bit theoretical. We need some why this, bone lies here and why it's called like that. It's a kind of, you need to feel.
So building some of that in.
So can I just pick up? The tutorials weren't optional at the start of the year.
No, they weren't.
Okay, and I was in discussions whereby people's attendance were getting affected because they felt they didn't need to come to tutorials because they'd done the work before.
Yeah.
And that was then impacting on their attendance, or they were scanning in and leaving, which is a compliance issue, which was then picked up on. So I then went for the second semester and put the tutorials for body systems as optional, so that if people didn't attend, it didn't affect their attendance record. But it wasn't like it's optional, therefore don't come. It was come if you feel that it's suitable. And also to make the ones that did come were the ones that wanted to be there and needed to be there, and it could be really focused. So that was the thought behind making them optional. Is there an opinion on whether or not that works? Whether they should be mandatory or optional?
Sorry, I think my opinion for the tutorials are useless came from the biological and chemical systems tutorials, there was quite a few occasions where lecturers would either not turn up or they would turn up and say, does anyone have any questions? No, all right, I'm leaving. Having waited like 2 hours between your lecture and your tutorial for that, when you could have been doing something maybe more valuable, was frustrating. So
Right.
that's probably where that came
So you
from.
have specific examples of that? Are you comfortable telling me? Is that across the board? Was that an across the board issue, or was it more frequent?
So it was mostly, as far as my memory goes, it was Timber with the chemical and body systems. I think he was our only lecturer for that module. Andreas always turned up for tutorials.
The chemistry element of that module, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Fatima, do you have an opinion on the tutorials?
I agree with what you said about keeping them optional and having the people that actually want to be there instead of the people who don't want to be there, and basically just creating
Making
like
noise.
making noise or creating like a atmosphere of like that might be quite negative.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think they should be kept optional. I think so then people who need help can access it.
And would you then expect, so I'm kind of prompting here, but that a tutorial would have a structure?
If it was mandatory, I'd expect it to have a structure. If it was optional, I wouldn't expect it to have a structure, because it's there for a support session for specific issues.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it should be more structured. I think.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe if you come up with a question, because it's an optional, so you can have to say, I don't expect the teacher to go through his structure plan because I've got a question specific, so explain to me how it's done. So that's so I don't expect any.
So student led really in terms of how it, if it's topic or
Yeah.
Okay.
And where would you see the value of, say, anatomy models more in the tutorial or more in the lectures for body systems?
Both.
In both.
Really.
In
I
terms of
don't find
time
them so
element,
essential.
time element of having to deliver X amount in a 2-hour lecture might not lend itself
Okay.
to the models at that time in order to get the material delivered, but it could be that then the models did come in. I could see that working.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And then maybe if people knew it was optional, but there was going to be the models involved.
Maybe if we were aware of what was going to happen in the tutorials, if on the timetable it was right, okay, we're going to do this, tomorrow we're going to do this, and then people can make an informed choice about their own learning. They're not just going to something that's not valuable for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And would that work on Blackboard? If it was clear on Blackboard what your tutorial was going to cover?
Oh yeah,
Would that
definitely.
Be
Absolutely.
Okay. So, does anyone want? Is there anything else on the content of the course anyone wants to say before we try and close that down?
I think it's quite difficult to know exactly what you'd want to. Well, I know we have the learning outcomes, but I think still, even with the learning outcomes, it's quite broad, and you don't know exactly what specifics you need to learn for the exam. Especially when you use Wiley Plus. When you do the questions, there are some questions that we haven't covered that aren't in the PowerPoints that might be in the PowerPoints that are on Wiley Plus. So then again, you get confused whether which questions apply to you and which don't. And it's that kind of thing.
So across the board, maybe a clearer
Just more
sort of specification, if you like. When you did A levels, there was a very clear specification with clear learning, and each of the learning outcomes was maybe filtered down a little bit more into.
Because one learning outcome, it
That's
covers 2-3 concepts, and you think, okay, yes, I know I have to know this, and when you go down, it goes really, really, deep. And
so an example would be the stages of aerobic respiration. Okay, whereas in a A-level spec, it would maybe break it down and said you need these stages down to pyruvate, but you don't need the individual stages in Krebs. That's what we're saying as well.
That's great.
Whereas that's not clear necessarily
Yeah.
what the detail you would need for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the Wiley textbook that we've got covers quite a lot more in a fair amount of depth. So there's a section on nutrition, there's a section on the composite of blood, there's another one. There's one about the feedback system of labour, and it's not something that we've covered in lectures. It's very specific things, but I think it's quite important.
Yeah, that's really useful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd help as well if lecturers took more advantage of Wiley Plus, because I think in actual lecture and stuff they don't really touch upon it, but I think it's very useful, and I think they should maybe use it a bit more. For example, like prompt people to do the assessments that are on there, and then for a certain time. I think if you do like questions and like it's not an exam, nothing like proper, but I think it would help you know where you're at and know what you can improve on.
Yeah.
So if they said if you do questions 1, 2 and 4 in chapter 3, that would be a really useful exercise for you to do. But don't do questions 7, 8 and 9 because they're not applicable.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's another... Sorry. I was just going to say there's another really good resource called Khan Academy, which is free, and that's got basically the entirety of our course on it. It's got videos, it's got like written material and questions as well, and that, I don't know about other people, that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, I've heard of that before. Yeah.
That's really broad though, isn't it?
It covers
you don't know
quite
where to
a lot.
stop. Yeah.
But Temba mentioned, I mean, he encourages us to go and do the questions on Wiley Plus. He says, do this because they are similar to what you're expecting in the exam. But again, where do you stop? This is...
So do your lecturers use anything like systems on their PowerPoints to say what's the more key things to know or not?
Yeah, Temba said in the PowerPoint that pay attention at the word in bold because you will be asked around that word.
Okay.
So he says, and not once he said, pay attention and know what the word in bold mean, because you can find on PowerPoint only 3 lines, but in the book, like, in the Wiley Plus quite a lot. So yeah, he points out, but it's quite a lot, I mean, to read well on Wiley Plus.
I think coming back with learning objectives, again, especially with the pieces of written work that we have to do, the objectives for that written work are often not very clear. I think it's worth maybe clarifying that with the lecturers, what the purpose of these pieces of work actually is. That goes for the scientific communication and the case-based study. It's not just one, it's both of the written assignments.
Whereas in how, if you do a written assignment, how that links to you achieving your learning objectives?
Know how the actual piece of work is structured, what objectives you're trying to hit with that piece of work.
Have you been given the marking criteria for them?
Yeah.
The marking rubric?
Yeah.
It's... I always look, when I write my piece of paper, I always look at what if I've covered in that one. So it helped me a lot to look at that. What I didn't do, so it's my mistake, but I am always guiding the marking what.
Have you been given any exemplars of a top, middle and bottom?
No. Well, sort of.
Yeah, we have been shown some, and he mentioned, look, this one scored 40, this 70. But he didn't show the best. I mean, that one that scored 80, 90, or he didn't show. He said because he wants us to, to work.
I think that's fair enough.
But
Well, we'll pick that up anyway and turn it in.
But he showed those one for 40 and those one for 70.
Yeah.
He showed, said, look, this one.
Yeah, but I think I'd like a bigger range of like exemplars that we could keep.
Definitely.
I understand the problem with it, but I think.
Okay, so this was something that was just shown in the board
Yeah,
rather
shown
than
and
you were given a copy or anything.
No,
Yeah, it was just shown on board for
quite
5 minutes.
Short piece of. It was quite a short activity. It was very much alright. Here's 3 pieces of work. We'll go through them quite quickly.
I would need to check guidelines anyway, and whether or not we could. Obviously there's guidelines on what you can give out. That's maybe been the issue.
Okay. Cool.
You can check that though.
Thank you, that's really good. So can I move us on to if you could describe what you feel about the progression opportunities that the course offers? So we touched on it a little earlier, didn't we, in terms of some of the timings of what those progression routes might be.
I think there are lots of progression routes in terms of we've got medicine, biomedical science, pharmacy and that kind of thing. It's just that even though there's a large range, there's just very small spaces. So I think for other people, it kind of discourages them a lot with continuing with the course, or even from the beginning when they hear that there's limited spaces, because then they've kind of already given up, I suppose. So I think it's that kind of thing. But obviously that's university only has limited spaces in the first place, so it's not much to do.
So I, as a result of listening to students, organised a pharmacy taster day, and we had to cancel it because there was very little take up on it. And then I did a survey, and we're going to run it hopefully in September next year before, and that was because it only, we couldn't run it in September last year because I wasn't in post. If you see what I mean, so it was something that came up, but people could then apply for pharmacy through clearing or UCAS extra. So that was the idea of it giving somebody an additional course. But the plan is moving forward that in the first month that people will come in and talk about different progression options. Do you think that would be something that you would have liked to have had and would have benefited from at the outset? Or do you think that you always had a plan anyway and it wouldn't have mattered?
I think at the outset people, students and lecturers should have talked more about the progression routes and emphasised more on it instead of it being even with the students just tucked under the carpet, because I think the majority of the students came here for medicine, so I think a lot of them weren't really open to or willing to talk about other progression routes because they kind of had their mindset.
I do remember standing in front of the class and we saying, because you're not all going to go in, and they said, well, why are you saying that to us, because that's not very nice.
I think
Did you remember I stood there?
It was kind of hard to take.
Yeah. So, but right at the outset, I think, is what you would think.
Definitely.
And when you started the course, were you aware of what the progression options were?
Vaguely.
I was aware. I was aware when I rang the admission team. I was aware they'd said that you can progress to this, and that. And I said, my plan is to get into medicine. They said, yes, but you know that there are only 15 places. I said, yeah. So I was aware on what I'm going to. I think this depends on the person, if the person asks or not.
Did anybody come onto the course through clearing? Okay. And do you feel that you gave given the information at clearing?
I think it should have been clearer on clearing, but I think at that time when they were probably getting loads and loads of phone calls and they were very busy, and even us were very trying to find somewhere. So it was kind of all last minute, all in a short space of time. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess you're scrambling just to get in somewhere, aren't you? To do something useful.
So I think it's an issue on both sides. I think I didn't know. To be honest, I didn't even know what questions I should have asked. If that made sense.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know what to ask. To be honest,
you don't know what you don't know, do you?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
And what do you feel about kind of the discussions and options you've been given whilst you've been on your course about your opportunities?
Been quite limited.
Okay.
It's very, and I understand why, but it is very, very medicine focused. That is generally the one thing that will be spoken about. That is generally the one thing that you will be given support for, is a medicine application. Whereas pharmacy or biomedical science or any of the other options, it's not explicitly said that you can get support for this. It's very much medicine focused. That's what everyone wants to do.
Is that what you came on the course? Did you hope to progress to medicine, or was there? Did you have another plan?
I was edging my bets, if I'm completely honest.
That's fine. Yeah.
I came on this course because I wanted to come to university this year, and the opportunity came up. Basically, it wasn't something that was particularly well researched, if I'm completely honest.
You're not alone in that regard. I can assure you.
No, I'm not going to lie to myself and say this was all very planned out, because it wasn't.
But I'm picking up that what you're saying, it's an October 15th deadline for those that are applying for medicine or anything else that includes if you've got medicine included in your application, you've got an October 15th deadline. So there's a key 6-week window in which we need to give clear advice and support across a range of programmes.
Yes,
And make options clear.
absolutely.
I think having an MPAS taste today at that time would be really useful, because I think a lot of people would just not. I think it's quite a kind of good option for people who are looking besides medicine, but a lot of people just didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd never heard of MPAS before.
So
if say for example somebody came and gave a talk on MPAS to start with, one of the MPAS team.
I think so. Definitely.
I think that would help a lot of other people.
Okay.
Yeah. Just knowing what's out there, really.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you said, you don't know what you don't know.
Excellent, thank you.
It's about, just I don't want to criticize what's a bit, because I'm coming from a different culture and you have to dig the things out by yourself in order to get to. So it's not something that I didn't know, I just researched and did.
So it wasn't
okay.
easy. So I
Yeah.
think what we're saying is no one made it easy for you, did they, to pick what you could do? So you knew there was things you could do, and I guess you had a sense that you were on a what sounds like, from what you're saying, a really useful course.
Yeah.
But you had to do a lot of the work yourself to find out information, rather than having some support from the university or the.
So it's a way up of personal responsibility
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
some responsibility in us to actually
Yeah.
guide you into doing that research.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do the research for you, but
this
here are
is
the options out
Absolutely,
there,
yeah.
and go away and think
Yeah.
about it yourself.
I think
And
it's
that's an easy solved, I think.
plans benefit as well to say, all right, it doesn't matter if you don't get into medicine, but there's lots of different courses that you can offer that you could do as well, and it's never going to be a bad thing for anybody.
Yeah, no, I think,
I don't know, it's just worth remembering that a lot of the people on this course are very young and probably a bit, oh my god, I've not got into medicine, what the hell am I going to do with my life now? And they're probably a bit panicked more than
a
anything.
significant amount of people are planning on going to Bulgaria at this point to study medicine there. I know a lot of people from this course.
Okay.
that have got in, have got places.
I think it's like you don't need to take an exam, it's just straight in and it's not very difficult, that kind of
You
thing.
just pay money and get.
Yeah, it's just
It's
pay
very
just
cheap
money.
Yes.
compared to.
But I know that's a lot of people are doing that.
Interesting.
Are the courses in English or are people?
They're in
Yeah,
English.
I was going to say.
Yeah, because I know one of our big competitors used to be the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Because they do some medical degree. That's interesting.
Interesting.
But obviously everyone's first choice is
Which is nice to know. Wish we had places. So tell me your thoughts on assessments, if you have any.
For me personally, I think they should be more frequent, I think. So I know we have the formative and then we have the summative, but like even having some like during class or even just on the computer just to like keep track of your progress, or like like straight after a lecture on a huge topic, like for example if you just did 2 hours in digestive system, like a little bit of a quiz even, like nothing formal.
Do you ever do any like Kahoot or anything like that in the classroom?
No.
Any?
So not necessarily formative in
Yeah,
exam conditions,
like quizzing,
but more
or even like in
quizzings
groups,
and options and
quizzes, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Like some good competitiveness, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that helps me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with the formative multiple choice exams, it'd be nice to have some feedback from them to say, all right, this is the area that people are struggling on, this is the area that people are good on. I know the purpose of these formatives is more to familiarise ourselves with the system, but for me in the past, doing a mock exam, the purpose of that has always been, all right, I'm struggling on this, I'm fine on that, this is what I need to revise, we can move forward from this. Otherwise, just getting a mark for a multiple choice exam, it's very vague.
Yeah.
You can't do a lot with
Yeah,
that.
because of the nature of the assessment and the nature of the multiple choice assessment, we cannot give back the specific papers and the specific responses because of the question bank, and but we could try and build in where there was more general feedback, like as a class, the digestive system was poorly answered, or that sort of thing, but we can't give we can't give the paper back and say, right, Bella, you didn't answer
yeah.
questions 7, 8 and 9.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be good.
Yeah, if we could build in some sort of more general feedback,
Yeah,
so it's just not something that happens, you get a mark,
Yeah.
suck it up, crack on.
Exactly. You want to do something constructive with that mark rather than just going, oh crap, I got 40% or oh, I got 80%, I don't have to do anything kind of thing.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, can this multiple choice assessment be changed not to be on computer? Because I had a personal experience with the maths. I'm good in maths, but when I got 53 at my formative, I was like, Diana, I mean, you know maths, so I mean, did you come to, to click the wrong answer? And the people who do not have a clue, but they've told me, my friend told me personally, but she just simply guessed. And she got 75. I'm thinking, how come? I mean, and if I want to use this grade later on,
yeah,
I was a bit frustrated. I said, I mean, it can be, and when you do it in GCSEs or A level, you get marks also for working, even though the answer is wrong.
Okay.
So, but in multiple choice, you don't have any.
Yeah.
Everything is on paper, and afterwards, and they don't look at this one. So I was a bit, could be, especially maths, could be changed on a paper, because it's a bit,
bit demoralising.
if you do the working right and at the end you click the wrong answer, or
Yeah.
because I don't know what. I mean, it's a bit
Frustrating.
it is
and a bit
frustrating.
odd.
Yeah.
Well, the assessment is corrected for guessing based on a multiple choice scenario. So she's a very good guesser, your friend.
Yeah, she's a bit.
Is all I'll say. I think
Yeah.
it's been educated guesses.
Yeah.
Educated guesses.
I'm thinking, what would you prefer a student in the future that guesses or that knows?
Oh yeah,
the
absolutely.
theory?
Yeah,
This I'm looking further. What do you want? What kind of student do you want?
The questions are the same as they've always been, whether they be based on an MCQ scenario or a written paper.
Yeah.
But it's the reason that we do them that way is because they're much easier and more clinical, if you like, and less open to interpretation when they're marked. Does that make sense? That's why, it's a known method of assessment.
Yeah.
And in a lot of programmes, when you go into medicine or whatever, it's all MCQ.
Okay.
But I get your point, and I'll discuss it with the
I know
maths
that
team.
can't be-
Yeah, I'll discuss it with the maths team.
Okay.
Hopefully.
I think coming back on that exam standardisation, I think it needs explaining a bit more. I don't understand what exam standardisation means. As far as I'm aware, it's something to do with people guess their answers and then my mark goes down because someone else has guessed their answers. Like, I don't understand what it is.
So that
And-
would it be useful for someone to kind of explain that to the
Yeah,
classes,
I
kind of
think
how what standardisation means,
Yeah.
how it's done. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's bad for morale, really.
Yeah.
Like with our exams that we've done after Christmas or before Christmas? After Christmas. We are waiting on standardisation of these exams. They could go down 5 marks, they could go up 2 marks. No one knows. It's quite a big difference.
Well, that's always the case. That's not the standardisation process. That's
Okay.
been done. But what we're saying is that we don't ratify any marks until they've gone through the assessment boards,
Okay.
where the external examiner looks at the exam paper, looks at the marks, looks at the standardisation proceedings, and then either agrees or disagrees.
Okay.
It's not that the standardisation hasn't taken place,
Okay.
but that's the same across all programmes,
Okay.
that no marks are official until the exam board
Okay.
examination, the external examiner has looked at them. But I do take your point
Yeah.
that I think from the outset in September is another thing we need to make clear is the standardisation process.
Yeah. That would be good.
What it means, yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And I agree.
Okay.
I concur.
Yeah. I have another thing about, can the summer exams be delayed to June?
No, we're governed by the university assessment windows.
Really?
Yeah.
Or at the end, because I feel that I personally do not have enough time to prepare if it will be beginning of June like that, because of the amount of body system again.
Yeah.
It's the thing that draws me back. It's the body system, because I don't have enough time to cover. Even though he says that prepare every time, for the lesson, and I do. But when we've got 2 topics in a week and quite big topics, I can't make notes beforehand. It takes for me, if I sit from 10 hours to 2 days, 10 hours to make a note. To make notes for one topic, and I can't use all 10 hours. I mean, if I'm doing, because I'm in school or I'm at home and with kids, so I have to use the nights. So, and I didn't come up to the bottom of the budget system yet. Two topics because I couldn't, and I worked constantly, and I'm thinking when I'm gonna finish this. So that's why it could be. I know it's 20 of May. We've got the exam in body system, but it could be,
Yeah, the university has a 3-4 week assessment window that then, because after that they have to go to programme boards and then be ratified and then results released. Right. You've got to, that's across all programmes across the whole university. So it's a bit like when you do A-levels and you sit your A-levels in May and you don't get the results till August. It just takes that time for all the assessment to be ratified and normalised and all the things. So like you said about standardisation, just to explain, when you sit your A-levels, I don't know if your teacher have explained this to you, but the mark you are given isn't the mark that you got in the exam paper. So year on year, depending on whether an A-level paper was easier or more difficult, the grade boundaries changed. Yeah. So say you needed to get 80 out of 100 to get an A in module 1 year. The following year you might only have had to get 60 out of 100 to get an A. Because
so is it the same
it's that
okay.
sort of
that's kind of how standardisation works.
It's that idea. It's
looking at everyone's grade and where.
Like, this was an easier assessment this year, and that was always a difficult conversation I used to have with sixth form students, because it was like they did a mock paper, and that mock paper they got 54 out of 100 and they got a C. Yeah. But then they did the mock paper for a different year, and they got 54 out of 100 and they got a B. Yeah. Right. So that's what standardisation means.
Okay.
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 It makes sense finally.
Okay. That was worth the 2.5 hour drive.
Oh dear.
Is there anything else on assessment?
A couple of people, when they received their scientific communication assessment back, they didn't have any feedback on their feedback turn it in thing, which was a little bit odd. Again, the feedback for me, I don't know about anyone else, there wasn't much suggestion for improvement. It was all, okay, this was good, this was alright, your grammar's rubbish, and that was about it. It wasn't constructive. I don't know if that's, again, standard for the university or if that's an issue. But again, it just seemed a bit strange that some people didn't receive any feedback at all.
Okay. Did you ever get any feedback, like for it? You said there wasn't a formative assessment. Yeah. Did you ever hand anything in that you then got feedback and guidance on how to make improvements in terms of scientific writing?
At the very start of the year, we did a PowerPoint presentation. I think it feels like a million years ago, to be honest. I think there was something like that, or we might have submitted a blog, maybe.
On case study we did.
Case study we did
with Emeka, a formative for our case study paper. So we did a PowerPoint. I remember I was presenting what I want to write in my blog. So he said, this is good, this is bad, go and work. He simply told, we had, I think, each person had 10 minutes from our class. So, and I worked through, I went through those comments, and if I wanted, I always could contact him and,
This was for scientific communication or space study?
For the scientific the first semester, Okay. And I feel that, if I want an answer from my teachers, I always can mail them or ask them, and I always get an answer. I'm not waiting for give me feedback for that. I'm always going, and they're giving me feedback.
Okay.
But then I guess that's not. We need some form of standardised approach, don't we? Really?
I don't think you should have to be chasing feedback. No. Especially again, if you're 18 years old, you've never had to email a lecturer before. It's a bit
jarring. I realised that it probably, I don't know, for you it might seem like we're babying students and that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's a bit of a funny one really, like giving people that independence and then giving them support that they need as well.
I think there's two issues here. There's the not getting feedback on your actual assignment on turn it in. I think that's one thing. And then I think there's also the issue of formative feedback as you're going through the process prior to submission. I think that's a sort of different issue, isn't it?
Okay.
So, so you're saying you got some formative, but you sought that out, if you like, but maybe if it was made clear at the start that if you would submit something to me, I would give you some feedback on it.
Okay.
Rather than, I don't know, I'm just suggesting.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, the point of feedback is if it's not constructive feedback,
there's no point,
there's no point giving you any feedback.
Well, pretty much. Having said that, Wise is really good here. It's really good having that service here. It's brilliant.
Did you know about Wiser from the outset?
Yeah. I think at the beginning she came in and talked about what she offers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She did.
So that was clear from the outset.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been going for about an hour or so now, so I'll try and bring this to a close.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anything in that we haven't covered that people wanted to cover?
Yeah, I wanted to get a timetable.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works for the young one, but for the mature students, if it can be the course through 2 or 3 days. I mean, we've got now 4 days a week, like from 10 to, it depends, 2:30 or 3. But as a mature student, I would prefer 2 full days from 9 to 5, and so I know that I've got the rest of the days to work, as we've got quite a lot on independent work. And I know that it worked really well last year. I don't want to compare, but I want to say last year in Access course, we've got Mondays and Tuesdays from 9 to 5. We had in the morning chemistry. We've got 2 hours of chemistry, and after 1 hour of tutorial, 1 hour break, and after again 2 hours of and after tutorial. So it worked really well. So I knew that I've got two days in school, and after 3 days for my independent study. It worked really well. So I don't know if it could be changed, but depends again if people want to from 9 to 5. No, you don't think?
It's not going to work.
Not going to work. No.
No.
It's because I'm coming from Manchester, so I need quite.
Yeah.
I would rather sacrifice 2 days a week. Work hard work.
Yeah.
And afterwards.
Yeah, I get that. I get that, and we've tried to timetable it so that the lectures start at 10 to allow people the time to get here, because that was an issue. And we've given a Wednesday off to allow an opportunity for volunteering or work shadowing or whatever. So that's why the Wednesday was kept free, because we're not allowed to timetable on a Wednesday afternoon anyway. So that provided you a day to go and develop transferable skills or whatever it was you chose to do on that day. That's a difficult ask to transfer to timetable just over the number of guided learning hours. But again, I understand why you say that, but I think it would be difficult.
It would be difficult.
And how's the timetable worked for others? Does it seem okay?
Yeah,
I think it's worked quite well for me.
I think so. Just again for me specifically, I travel in from Preston on the train, which is £11.70 a pop. So 4 days a week, it adds up to over 50 quid. To travel in for 2 hours to then travel back, it's very, very expensive. I get a bursary from uni for £500. This doesn't even cover half of my travel expenses. I know that there's a bus from Blackpool to Preston campus. I don't know if you could consider doing a bus from Preston to Burnley. It would make it massively more accessible. I know there's people who are spending probably that amount, if not more, on petrol to get here. I don't know how many people live in Burnley. I can't imagine it would be a huge number of students. it's not a particularly cheap place to get to, and I think that really is quite a big barrier for a lot of people to attending like university, especially like at the start of the year my student loan didn't come in for nearly 3 months, so I was like choosing between eating and coming to uni at one point, and that's obviously it's not ideal.
No, it's not.
Really. So maybe.
So would you prefer like more condensed days then to make it worth the travel?
I think it'd either have to be more condensed days or what's the word? Subsidised transport.
Some cheaper transport.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if I was to get a bus from Preston, a public bus, it'd take me nearly 3 hours to get here. It's not feasible. It's not realistic. Yeah, that was quite a big issue for me. I don't know about other people.
No, I'll take that on board.
Okay.
Yeah. Fatima?
I think it'd be useful to like advertise the accommodation, which is linked with UCLan, not by UCLan, but they have partnerships with some of the companies here who like rent houses to students. So that's what I've been doing. So I'm just up the road, so I can just, it's like a 20-minute walk, and I know quite a few students do that. So travelling for me is quite easy because I'm already in Burnley. So
Yeah.
I think maybe advertise that to people. So
And how did you find out about that to start with? Did you?
I called UCLan about accommodation, and they referred me to them. So I think I knew the distance from Preston and Burnley, and I was thinking, okay, that's going to be quite difficult. So I think a lot of people who I came through clearing, so I think a lot of people might have not been aware beforehand, who might have applied early or something, and have already applied to Preston accommodation, that this was available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smashing.
Pretty much.
So is there anything else we haven't covered?
Let me
There
go
are
through
lots
my
of
sheet.
things that we haven't covered. Please do get them.
There was a couple of occasions where the two classes were put into one classroom, so that's over 60 people in one of these classrooms. The reason given for that was to allow consistency in teaching between classes, which I thought was slightly bizarre, but it wasn't consistent. It seemed a bit weird. It was very cramped as well. There's a lecture theatre downstairs. I don't understand why we weren't using that. Well, there's one upstairs as well. There's two. There's plenty of room. I don't know why we weren't in there. It seemed a bit strange that there was 60 odd people in a room.
Can you remember what topic that was for?
Body system it was.
Was it body systems?
Okay, so
Yeah.
Second semester.
okay, so one person then, say Temba was down to teach one body systems class and Emeka the other,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
and
think
but
so.
but it was Temba's area, say, of special.
Specialties.
That's the one. It was his
Expertise.
expertise.
There we
That's the
go.
word I'm looking for. And they felt that I'm thinking here that maybe because it was his area of expertise, that actually it would be better for him to teach everybody that particular topic than Emeka to half teach it, if you like, if he wasn't comfortable teaching it.
Okay.
I'm just thinking things through in my mind.
And is that a regular recurrence? Or is
I
that...
think it happened 3 times or
Yeah.
twice. It didn't
So
happen
it's nice,
often.
no?
No.
And was there not enough
Inconvenient.
seats for everybody?
No, there was people sitting in the corridors in the
Right,
middle,
okay.
which is a fire risk
Okay.
as well.
So if that was to happen, in principle, in terms of an academic exercise, it's not really a problem, but it's a facilities issue.
Pretty much.
So if we knew about it ahead of time and just timetabled you in a different facility.
And I think the fact that, as you said, maybe it was Temba's area of expertise, whereas Emeka was still teaching certain classes in that topic. Like if Temba was an expert on, say, I don't know, the liver, like it just seemed a bit strange that this specific lecturer was allowed to teach some of the classes in that area, but not the
I'm
others.
only guessing. I don't
Yeah,
even know
of
if that was
course.
the case. It could have been somebody was ill, or I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just trying to think of why that would have been the case. But if that were the scenario, because it was somebody's area of expertise in that particular day, or indeed because somebody was off ill,
Yeah, absolutely.
and they had to put some classes together,
Yeah.
it's a facilities issue in
Yes.
terms of the room isn't big enough. But if we had notice of that and we timetabled you somewhere else, because the lecture theatre wasn't fit for purpose until relatively recently for putting everybody in. Yeah.
The big one.
Yeah, the big one.
So the one in the middle only sits about 50 people.
Yeah.
So 40 people.
Okay.
So yeah, okay, I get your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
something to put
Yeah,
into
thank you.
place
Sweet.
for future. Yeah,
Okay. I've got one more thing. on
Good,
my
yes,
list.
good.
I'm sorry.
No,
No,
don't. This
listen,
is what
make
they're
that
for.
worthwhile
This is-
coming down.
this is a good thing.
On one occasion, there was a lecturer who returned feedback forms we'd anonymously filled in and asked us to redo them in class. I couldn't tell you the reasons for this. It seemed a bit odd, and for me it defeated the point of giving anonymous feedback for a class, being asked to redo them, because either he didn't like the feedback or it wasn't clear or whatever. That only happened once, but it stuck in my mind.
And he
It's a
knew
bit
who, and he
strange.
gave the actual feedback form to the specific person. So
No,
was
it was the whole class.
Oh, right, okay.
But he appeared to be not specifically naming people, but tagged in certain feedback that had been given to him that he didn't like.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Do you remember this?
No, if you tell me what feedbacks, I probably can remember.
It was probably in January. It was for scientific communication, I think.
End of module feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, Emeka was making a couple of comments, I remember, about that liver, don't write, somebody, yeah, he said that somebody wrote liver is like that, somebody wrote, yeah, he was making some comments that probably he gave us a hint that don't repeat again the mistake, but...
It's anonymous feedback. You shouldn't be reading it
Does
through
anybody
if
feel
you're giving
like,
it back
okay, I
to him.
always set up a Bristol Online feedback for end of module, an electronic one that is definitely
Yeah, we
anonymous.
saw that as well.
So,
But then there was this paper feedback
Yeah.
form that appeared out of nowhere.
yeah, there's two. There's the university policy feedback, which
Okay.
is the paper one,
Mm-hmm.
and there's what I set up as an in-house feedback, which is an online form that you just fill in.
Okay.
Now I found that the take-up of these sort of
It's low.
surveys is very, very
Yeah.
low and very difficult to actually get anything that's statistically robust enough
Yeah.
to use,
Yeah.
which is disappointing because, you know, we can't, that's why we really appreciate your honesty today, because we can't make improvements if we don't know, again, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So that's why these sort of feedback things are important, so that we can make improvements, and we do need honesty, because otherwise we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I understand, yeah.
So I really appreciate what you've said today.
Sweet.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You've managed to go for an hour and 13 minutes.
Wow.
So
Impressive.
that is very impressive,
Yeah.
especially as there's only a few of us. That's really good, and the discussion's been really useful, and thank you for that. I've taken some notes, obviously got the recording, we'll go away and write some of this up, and then we'll try and be in touch with kind of some of the things we're going to do.
Yeah, and it'll come under kind of, you said we did,
Yeah.
Okay.
sort of, you know, as a result of, you know, feedback. And that's just all, you know, I think we should say. This
Yes.
is what you've said, and this is what,
Yes.
what we're going to do.
Great.
But yeah,
I
so
really
thank
appreciate
you.
it,
I really
particularly
appreciate your time,
travelling all this way.
and good
Um,
luck.
Can I ask also, just from my own perspective, so who had maths, was meant to have maths today? Yeah, and when was the maths cancelled?
Maths. 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 Maths.